Hey, Dutch Uncle George here, and on this video I want to discuss an idea that gets put out there a lot in the incel community and the manosphere in general, and that is that this idea that you have to be a really great-looking guy and/or have a lot of money to be able to get sex, to be able to get women to have romantic relationships with you. And I'm here to tell you, it really just isn't true. Let me give you my history on this. And granted, this goes back a long time. I'm in my 50s now, so we're talking about back 30 years or so. And things have changed a little bit in that span of time. Well, they've changed a lot in some ways in terms of technology and that kind of thing. But in terms of human interactions, psychology, sexual attraction, those things are timeless. They go back way, way back into human history. It's not something that's changed a lot in the last 30 years or so. So I think these things are still pretty valid that I'm going to tell you, even though the tech and the mechanisms for dating and that kind of thing have changed. So let me talk about my experience. I guess you could say I was an incel before that was actually a term. Although I wasn't the angry incel, I was the guy who was miserable because he couldn't get laid. But the idea is there. I was involuntarily celibate, so therefore I was an incel. And in high school, I dated a grand total of three women, and dating is kind of that's probably being generous in two of those cases. I went out with a couple of these women. Absolutely nothing happened. I didn't, I saw them once each as a date. I saw them a couple of times as friends beyond that, but other than that, nothing happened. The third one I did actually get to second base with. She was the first girl I kissed. I did get to, do a little groping play and that kind of stuff, but that was as far as that one went. And she had a friend who I think was jealous of my girlfriend, that I'll call her loosely my girlfriend, spending time with me, and she pretty much poisoned that relationship, and that was the end of it. So moving on to college, I finally did lose my virginity, kind of in the middle of college, and I was so thrilled to find a woman who would have sex with me that I overlooked some of those glaring incompatibilities that we had, and even though those were there, like I said, I ignored them. I married her, and subsequently divorced her when she cheated on me with another woman. Does tend to hurt your confidence a little bit. Anyway, I did manage to find another woman to have sex with before I then met and married my second wife. So this has taken me up to early 30s when I got married to my second wife. And I was scared to death of losing that relationship and probably held on too tightly, got too clingy, and killed any attraction we had, and was in a sexless marriage with her for a couple of years. So, or at least mostly sexless. I think we'd have sex on my birthday, sometimes maybe, it was like once or twice a year, pretty much sexless. So, split up with her, and had essentially zero confidence with women at that point. And, when I alluded to this in another video, when I broke up with my second wife, I, was obviously pretty upset about that. And in the midst of a pity party I was having for myself, I was thinking, are all of my relationships destined to end? And the answer came to me quickly and brutally, yes, you dumbass, they are going to end. And I realized in that moment that all relationships end. Even if you're close for years and years, people die. Anything can happen. So yeah, all relationships are going to end. So you might as well accept that and go on with the idea of enjoy what you got while you have it. Whether it's just a friends with benefits thing, or whether it's a more serious relationship or a marriage or whatever, it's going to end. So have fun, enjoy it while it lasts. And so that have fun idea kind of changed me all by itself. But I still didn't have a whole lot of confidence. I didn't know how to approach women. And it was at that point I came across something called Double Your Dating. It was an ebook by a guy named David D'Angelo. I looked it up to see if it was still available. For the most part, it does not appear to be. I think he kind of moved on to other things. And it would be a little outdated now if he hadn't updated it. The French version appears to be available on Amazon. Why the French version is available and not the English version? Yeah, got me. But anyway, it is. There are a bunch of other things out there that are very similar. The basic concept of Double Your Dating was to develop confidence, develop a kind of an attitude of being cocky and funny. It's good to have a sense of humor, but not to be too much self-deprecating and poking fun for yourself. Be open to that a little bit, but not exclusively, drag yourself down with, self-targeted humor. And to develop this kind of cocky attitude. And a lot of it was also in what he called the inner game, talking about, what your mindset is on a lot of these things. And, for example, there's all these rules about, what you should and you shouldn't do when you're dating. Well, when should you call a woman? When, after the first date or whatever. And, those rules are arbitrary. They don't mean anything. What's important is, what is your mindset on what you're doing? So if you're going to call somebody because you want to call them. Don't call somebody because, oh my God, I can't live without you. No, just say, hey, I want to talk to you. How you doing? I'm thinking about going to do this thing, tomorrow. You want to go with me? That kind of thing. As opposed to being this desperate, clingy, calling them, 10 times a day, that kind of stuff. So anyway, moving on. So that added to, me being able to be more successful. And then as those successes built, then I became more confident. And I went from a point, of basically not having any dates, not getting any sex, to, a few months later, I had several, friends with benefits types of situations. I was having sex with, 3 to 5 different women every week. Yeah, it was a huge transformation. The transformation wasn't that I suddenly came into money. It wasn't that I suddenly got buff in the gym. It had nothing to do with my looks. It had nothing to do with money. It had to do with what was going on in here. And that's what I want to impress upon you, is that you hear all these people talking about you have to be, the good-looking Chad, or you have to have lots of money. Otherwise, women won't pay any attention to you. They won't give you sex. It's bullshit. What's going on in here is what matters. And yeah, there was this guy, and after I learned about Double Your Dating, I had this epiphany about some guy I had known back when I was a teenager. He was the older brother of a couple of guys I hung out with, and this guy had amazing success with women. He was dating a different woman every night, presumably getting laid, because they were all over him whenever I saw him with these women. And these women were hot. This is Miami, and these were Miami hot, not Podunk, Iowa hot. These were hot women, bikini models. Now, let me tell you about this guy. He was short, maybe 5'6", 5'7". I mean, he was a little guy, skinny, bow-legged. He was actually missing his chest muscle. Some people actually don't form a chest muscle on both sides. He was actually missing a chest muscle. So he had kind of a deformed chest if you saw him with his shirt off. He went with his shirt off all the time around these women. They were still all over him. He had these thick glasses, like really thick glasses, so the lenses made his face look a little distorted when you looked at him. Not a handsome dude. And yet he had women all over him. And again, what was it? Was it how he looked? Nope. Oh, well, he must have had money then. Nope. He was in his 20s, still living at home with his parents. He drove a beater. It was a sports car, to be fair. It was I think a Datsun 240Z. It was a piece of crap. And if you're not familiar with Datsun, it's what's known as Nissan now. But it was, it was technically a sports car, but it was a piece of crap. he didn't have a lot going for him in terms of looks or money. Yet the women loved him. And so what was it about him? Well, he was kind of an asshole. He was a funny asshole. And then it clicked. It's like cocky and funny. He was super cocky. He was on the edging into arrogance aspect of it. But yeah, he was super cocky, super funny, and the women loved him. They were all over him. And so again, looks, nope. Money, nope. And yet super successful with women. So this is what I want you to understand, is that there are ways to develop that mindset of, you're going to be confident, you can be funny, you can be cocky, and you can have a good time with a lot of these women and not take things so seriously. And when the time comes, you meet somebody you really like, you can have a relationship with them. So this is, I would say the biggest things you have to work on is not how you look or how much money you're making. The biggest thing is to work on that fun, cocky, maybe even bordering on arrogant type of personality. And even if you're not there, like I'm not a, big, cocky, arrogant kind of guy, but I developed that a taste of it in my humor. So it worked for me. Like I said, it went from, basically nothing to, sex multiple times a week with different women. So forget about the looks and money thing. It's just simply not true. And if you want to develop some of these things, there's lots of guides out there. I don't have one to sell you. I would have recommended Double Your Dating, even though it's a little bit outdated. But unless you speak French, I don't think it's available to you anymore. But there's a lot of them out there that teach basically the same skill set. So check them out. Look at the ones that have good reviews. Maybe try one of those out, see how it goes for you. The other thing here is this is within your control. So the other part of the idea is if you don't have looks or money, women won't be interested in you. And it kind of puts it on women as all being, gold-digging assholes. Are there gold-digging assholes, women who are gold-digging assholes out there? Absolutely. Are there some who won't give you the time of day if you don't have tons of money to throw at them? Absolutely. Are there those who won't give you the time of day if you don't look a certain way? Absolutely. But that is not all women. It's not even I would say it's a small minority in my experience. Maybe that's changed a little bit over time, but there's still an awful lot of women out there for whom money and looks, they really don't give a crap. They want you to have some ambition, yeah. They want you to have a job, yeah. They want you to be able to pay your own way, yeah. But as far as being rich or being, the next Brad Pitt, no. If you're fun to be with and entertaining and you keep them engaged, that's what they're looking for. So I think I've gone on long enough on this one. I'm going to go ahead and cut it off there. But again, looks, money, they really don't matter in most cases. So let go of that, and you can start working on some of these things and actually find, I think that you're a lot more successful. You actually do get laid. You actually do have the opportunity to develop lasting relationships with women, and you're going to enjoy life a whole lot more. You're going to be a lot less lonely. You're going to be happier, and life is just going to be better. So it's not going to happen immediately. There is going to be some effort involved. You are going to have some failures, but you keep at it. The successes build. Your confidence builds. The more confident you are, the more successful you'll be, and it goes from there. So that's it for this one. Hope you got something out of it. Thanks for watching.